This is describing the tail end of the Payovrata ceremony. And while previous verses described the more challenging details and austerities of the ceremony, like sleeping on the floor and drinking only milk, feeding a certain number of brahmanas, a certain kind of prep. I'm pretty sure spending a summer in Alachua was on that list too somewhere, I don't know. Lots of austerities is the point. But here, it's all celebratory. Distribute prasad to anyone and everyone, dancing, singing, music, prayers, mantras, recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we mirror this stuff in our festivals. Actually, when we talk about recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, that can manifest as reciting verses or discussing topics from Srimad Bhagavatam. It can also manifest as performance, dramas, as we say in this kind, dramas. As a person who has done some acting, I always had objections to the word dramas to describe what are essentially plays. They're plays, and I do a lot of comedy. So it's a little disheartening when I do a comedy performance and I come off stage and then a wonderful, well-meaning devotee tries to make me feel better by saying, Prabhu, I really enjoyed your drama. And I'm thinking, if you thought it was a drama, I'm doing something wrong, But I appreciate it anyway. So anyway, dramas, it's also the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and also he brings up that he's not making this stuff up. It's not his own conjecture. It's coming in parampara. So it's authorized. The system is authorized. Now remember, Vishapa Muni, who again is talking to his wife, Aditi, he already explained to her the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and why she didn't need to lament for her sons. But she couldn't accept it. And now I love this because it's real. It's like, it's Shastra. So maybe we have this expectation that everybody's going to be perfect. But it's not that everyone's a perfect sage, that they hear the truth and immediately they accept it. No, it's like us. They hear the truth and they can't accept it. Or they hear the truth and they can accept it, but they're still attached and they can't assimilate it. Dhruva Maharaj was like this too. Narada Muni tells him what would benefit him the most. And he's like, yeah, no can do, Naradaji. I want a kingdom. It's real. We have these attachments. It's tough to get past them. It's like when I first read Srimad Bhagavatam, I was thinking, why are all these advanced souls so quick to curse people? Have you noticed how much cursing of people is going on throughout Srimad Bhagavatam? And I was thinking, like, what kind of Vaishnavas are these? They're so fast to curse people. But the answer is that they're not, they're people. The answer is that they're people. They're not these one-dimensional characters of fiction. They're real, and they're still work in the process. It's not that everybody in Shastra is pure. There's a lot of pure people in Shastra, but not everybody. So that's why we shouldn't beat ourselves up when we fall short of perfection. We don't need to fake it. We need to acknowledge that we're just not there yet. We learn our lesson and move forward with complete humility and sincerity. And actually, having these people not be perfect in Shastra gives me more faith in Shastra. So it's also worth noting that Aditi was in emotional distress, and she didn't find it helpful when her husband gave her philosophy. Sometimes devotees can be a little on the cold side when someone is emotional, or they're going through something, that just lost a loved one, is going through some other emotional upheaval. That might not be the time to say, Prabhu, you're not your body, so time to get over it. A devotee is sympathetic and empathetic and compassionate and supportive. Show them love and you'll win their hearts. Show them love and you will help them to heal their hearts. There's a place for philosophy. Before trauma, it's great. And after trauma is helpful. And sometimes even during trauma, but one has to use discretion and know when to do that and when just to turn on the compassion and be there for the other person. So Aditi cannot accept what Kashyapa Muni tells her about Krishna consciousness. So he tells her to execute the Payovrata. And this is an example of what is meant when devotees, to some degree, dismiss the Vedas as not being on the highest platform. In the Gita, Krishna tells us that the Vedas deal with the modes of material nature. Rather than an abrupt turn toward Krishna, the Vedas provide more of a weaning off of materialism. They say, go ahead, interact with matter, but do it like this. But do it in this way so that people can gradually be brought to the spiritual platform. In this way, we develop discipline, regulation, and a sense that we're not the center. We're not in control. If there's someone greater than us to whom we have to answer. Now, one of the traps of ritual, which is what the Payovrata is, it's a ritual, is it very easily can become perfunctory. Ritual can become routine, and routine can become automatic and mindless. That's why he tells her, he says, he doesn't just say, execute the process. He says, establish your mind in good spirit and then execute the process. Right? Which reminds me of the Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter, where Krishna says, Susukam kartum. Right? Knowledge of the perfection of religion is joyfully performed. Joyfully performed. So we have to be in the right mindset, and we have to actually make sure that our mind is present. So it's not that when I see Gaur Sharan Prabhu and I say, Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance. Thank you for your seva. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why does he always wear that stupid kurta? You know, look at him with his shaved head. Why doesn't he grow his hair like me? Probably thinks he has a really attractive skull or something, right? Externally, I'm offering him respect, Hare Krishna Prabhu. But internally, there's disrespect and envy. Of course, that may be a little extreme. But the point is, which one carries the most weight in Krishna's eyes? The internal, of course, because that's where the truth is. I remember when I was a kid, I went to Sunday school. It was on Tuesdays. It was on Tuesday nights, actually, but it was still Sunday school. Tuesday nights, but they called it Sunday school. It's Tuesday. Sunday school. Anyway, whatever. They showed a short film, and one time that I remember to this day, some 10 years later, I don't remember the specific details, but the overall idea made a pretty strong impression on me. There was no dialogue. It was something like this. A middle-aged white woman was walking down the street, and she passed a black guy, and she just sort of made note of him. Then she saw a Jewish family. The guys had yarmulkes and everything, and they didn't see her, but she gave him a look. You know? She passed other things like this. You get the idea. Then she's walking up these steps, and a door opens before she gets there. And a couple of Hispanic women come out laughing and talking in Spanish. She watches them disapprovingly as they walk down the steps. And the shot pans back to reveal that the building that she's walking into is a church. And there was some voiceover, which I don't remember, but the idea was that it's useless to go to church and still hold hatred in your heart. This is a total paraphrase, but you get what I'm talking about. It was very powerful. Who we are in our best moments on the outside is who we need to be all the time on the inside. On the inside, that's where the truth of who we are is. And it's actually a good gauge to see if we're making any spiritual progress. How much disharmony is there between the me that I present to the world and the real me, the one that I'm the only one who knows. So going through the motions of some sacrifice or austerity I mean, at least I'm doing it, but if it's not done with at least a desire to attain the desire to serve, then I'm just wasting my time. I don't see how anything done begrudgingly or resentfully will please Krishna. Anyway, Prabhupada reminds us in the purport that all the pomp and circumstance of rituals like this aren't necessary. He wants us to get to the essence. I don't know if it was Sanatana Goswami or maybe it was the Padma Purana that every rule, regulation, and ritual is a servant of these two rules. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. That's the essence of everything we do. And actually, the next verse, which we're not going to do tomorrow, but the next verse makes me laugh because Kashyapa Muni says, Payovrata is the best process for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says it's the best regular principle. It's the best austerity, the best process of giving in charity, and the best sacrifice. It's pretty emphatic. And then Prabhupada hammers right into the purport. First thing, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Forget this stuff and just surrender to me. Right? So he's making the point there. You know, as an aside, it's really easy to forget how extremely lucky we are in the face of the terror that is Kali Yuga. That we're all here a paltry 500 years after the advent of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya has given us, really it's an unthinkably great boon. It's unthinkable, really. By chanting the names of the Lord, we'll be free, as George Harrison once sang. It's so easy to take it for granted, but let's not. Let's not. And Prabhupada set everything up for us. Everything he describes in this purport, he's given us. I'm just going to go back to the purport for a second. You don't have to put this on the screen, Gosharam, but I'm just going to read it here. From the purport. In our Krishna consciousness movement, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in every temple according to a schedule of 24 hours of engagement in performing kirtana, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, offering palatable food to Lord Vishnu, and distributing this food to Vaishnavas and others. These are authorized activities. And if the members of the Krishna consciousness movement stick to these principles, they will achieve the same result one gains by observing the Payovrata ceremony. Thus, the essence of all auspicious activities, such as performing yajna, giving in charity, observing vratas, and undergoing austerities, is included in the Krishna consciousness movement. Is included in the Krishna consciousness movement. Is included in the Krishna consciousness movement. That's fine. Thank you. So it's included. Isn't it always a great feeling to know that you don't have to buy the batteries separately? Don't you love that? Prabhupada has given us the supreme package deal. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. The Maha Mantra contains all other mantras. These different Vedic processes and all of these mantras, they will get us to where we need to be, no doubt. But the analogy has been given that we've all heard it probably, that it's like taking the stairs to the top of the Empire State Building. The Maha Mantra is the elevator. Now, I mentioned a drawback or two of ritual, but going through the essence has its own drawbacks. It can make one dismissive of guidelines that we should be following. And it can arm us with a lazy rationalism. You know, when I was first coming around the devotees, I had heard that some devotees outside of ISKCON would claim that Prabhupada said to chant 16 rounds because what he really wanted was for us to chant 4 really good rounds. So he told us to chant 16, figuring a lot of it won't be good. And the essence is 4 rounds. And I thought that was really curious. One time I was in an airport and I had my hand in a beanbag. I was at the gate. I was waiting to board the flight. And I look up and I see a guy with his hand in a beanbag and he's walking toward me. This devotee is walking toward me. What are the odds finding a Hare Krishna in the airport, right? Are any of you old enough to understand that reference? Doesn't matter. Anyway, so thankfully that's behind us. So anyway, he comes up to me and we start talking and I tell him that I'm pretty new and everything. And the flight was not full. So we board the plane together and we end up sitting next to each other. Those weren't our regular seats, but because it wasn't full, we sat next to each other. And he tells me that, Srila Prabhupada told us to chant 16 rounds, but what he really wanted for us was to chant 4 really good rounds. Wow. So, God bless that devotee. He's glorious because he's chanting the holy name of the Lord. But the point is that devotees, myself heading the list, are not immune to lazy rationalizations. So a word to us all is to beware of that. We are essence seekers, but we have to be careful of these traps. So we should not doubt that Prabhupada made it as easy for us as possible. He gave us the essence while teaching us how to mold our entire lives around Krishna. But let's not make a ritual out of the essence. When I find myself, just trying to get through my japa, it's time to reevaluate. Govinda Prabhu from Radha Gopinath Mandir in Chowpatty, he said one time, you're chanting japa, and when you're very focused on those little beads, those little counter beads, 7, 8, 9, 10, then you're not conscious of Krishna, you're conscious of the process. Okay? So we don't want to be conscious of the process. We want to use the process to make us conscious of Krishna. Also when I bow down in front of my deities, and sometimes I'll get up and I'll just move on to the next thing without so much as looking at them sometimes. And understanding that, hey, there are people standing in front of me and I'm being rude, feigning reverence. When I do that kind of thing, it's time to get down on my knees and bow again and do it properly. The deities are people. They're the supreme people. And they're the objective goal of my life. So let me not pretend that they're wood or whatever else, brass, whatever. And I'm not racking my brain for examples here. I have actually done this stuff. So when I'm offering bhoga to the deities, reciting those prayers is not the time for me to imagine how good those preparations are going to be. I could go on. Sadly, I could go on, but these are not rituals. These are acts of service, acts of love. But they're only acts of service and acts of love if our intention is for them to be. So we have to decide that. As we all know, today is a special day. Today is Kartik Eve. Today is Kartik Eve. It's the day before Kartik. So we can enter into such a holy month in meditation of how Kartik itself boils everything down to the essence. All the rituals in which we participate, all the do's and don'ts that we check off our lists, everything everybody does in all other religious and spiritual paths and traditions, all the hyperactivity of atheistic pleasure seekers even, ultimately comes down to what we find in the pastimes of God and his dealings with his devotees. And that essence is particularly exemplified in Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna during Kartik. And all over, particularly with Mother Yashoda during Kartik. So let's take advantage of this unimaginable good fortune. By Prabhupada's grace, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let's bypass the intricacies and formalities and stick to this process. Understand our material attachments and the workings of the physical world for what they are. And remember that Prabhupada set up ISKCON in such a way that everything we need for success in spiritual life, he has given us. Everything we need for success in spiritual life, he has given us. Nothing else is essential. Nothing else is essential. And we'll still do many of these things. We'll still perform some yagyas and give in charity and make vratas and undergo austerity. And there's nothing wrong in taking part in some of the ritual ceremonies that are delineated in the Shastra. But our main focus as bhakti yogis is the essence, the foundational principles that Prabhupada gave us, but, following the four regs, chanting Hare Krishna, offering bhoga to the Lord, etc. But we have to be vigilant and not reduce those acts of service to merely ritual. We should give ourselves the full benefit of these things by putting our minds and our hearts into them. From person, lowercase p, to person, capital P. We offer them from person to person. As Amarendra Prabhu said last week in the Bhakti Center's Path to Perfection series, he said, when we put spirit in ritual, it becomes spiritual. I love that. So let's develop sincere love for Krishna, who after all has made all of these arrangements specifically for us. And I don't mean that in the abstract, I'm talking about this literally. He literally did this for you, Doyal Garanga, and you, Dinabandhu, and you, Janavi, and you, Ananda Bihari, and you, Radha Bhakti, and you, Jamuna Jaya, and you, Yogeshwari, and you, 173275444460, and you, Rukmini. Can you dig it? And somehow, even me. This is his love for us. This is the compassion and grace of the Lord. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your time and your giving me the opportunity to purify myself. Rukmini says she digs it. Right on, girl. Right on. Garanga says something, it's skipping around. I'm just looking at the chat box now. Who we are in our best moments on the outside is who we need to be always on the inside. Yeah. Burley Gopal. Thank you, Prabhu, for such a wonderful drama. Oh! Very nice. Great. Jamuna's digging it too. Great. Any comments? Well, there are some comments, so thank you for the comments. Any questions or corrections? Don't be afraid to tell me I did something wrong. Does anyone know where that quote is from the, which I think is either Sanatana Goswami somehow, or I think I may have read that was in Padma Purana, that every rule and regulation is in service of the two rules. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. Padma Purana, thank you, right there. It is Padma Purana. Thanks very much. It's a great thing. Also mentioned by Rupa Goswami. So I had the Goswami part in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Doyal, thank you. Good. So there's a few minutes left. I'm wondering, can anybody share any time where you caught yourself zoning out like I did, like I told you about, with deities or japa or prasadam or anything else that was particularly noteworthy or weird or funny or gave you some realization? Dinabandhu has definitely caught himself offering obeisance in a mechanical way. Yeah. Yep. Welcome to my club, unfortunately. Doyle would very much like to share, but his microphone is not working for some reason. Okay. How about my spiritual nickname is the Tin Man, though. Mechanical. I somehow doubt that, Doyle Prabhu, but okay, whatevs. Radha Bhakti is always guilty of complaining on Ekadasi. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And others as well. Yeah, that's a really good one, actually, because I think it is a very common one. I find myself going there sometimes too. And maybe not just be a Ekadasi, it could be Janmashtami and you're trying to fast, or any of the fast days, any of the days where we voluntarily take on the tapasya, feeling extra hungry and sleepy on fasting days, sure. Those are particularly challenging. And again, yeah, we need to catch ourselves, of course. Excuse me, and try to counter those feelings and understand them for what they are. I think, not to pretend that they're not there, but to acknowledge them and maybe even apologize to the Lord, and just have a conversation. Sometimes we think of, and Amarendra Prabhu was also bringing this out in his session on prayer. We tend to think of prayer as a formal thing, a formality, but prayer is also just talking, revealing one's heart to God. So even just talking to Krishna and apologizing, like, I'm sorry that my head is out, but I'm having trouble getting through this today, or whatever. And you might say it's a little selfish, but we can remind ourselves that this is for our benefit, that we want to do this to show Krishna that we want to get off the bodily platform, that the body is not as important to us as is our relationship with him, but I'm still suffering from identifying with the body, therefore I'm running into this problem. So if we're honest with him, he's going to understand. He's not expecting us to be perfect, So I think in those times, we have to be real with ourselves and acknowledge it and try our best and pray for help in getting through those times. Thanks for bringing that one up. Daniel, I break all the rules and justify them by saying I'm new. Daniel, you're not new anymore. You're like one of the people doing the most at Bhakti Center right now. But anyway, that's great. That's great for you to acknowledge that. If we know, because a lot of times we fool ourselves, and we try to fool ourselves. So if you know that you're rationalizing or justifying behavior, that's great. If you can admit that to yourself, that's great. And it's very brave of you to admit that in a public forum too. So that's great. Acknowledging it and trying to move beyond it. Let's see. Rukmini, I chant my rounds while listening to class. Yeah, sometimes we may feel like we're forced into that situation, but not optimal, right? And you know that because you put a little sad face there. We have to try to make time to do rounds, and ultimately we have to do what we have to do. But if we're at least working toward it, that's anartha and vritti, right? We're trying to work toward it. We can't chant japa with our minds fully on the holy names. our minds are going to wander, but if for at least trying to bring it back. It's only an offense to the holy name when we let the mind go. If we're trying to bring it back and we fail, and we try to bring it back and we fail, and we try to bring it back and we fail, that's anartha nivritti. You're in the process of trying to clear things out. So just keep trying to not combine these things. Gail, but wait, doesn't fast days mean trying to get through your rounds as fast as possible? Gail, why do I give you time to express these things? Great. Thank you for your drama, Gail. Dina Bandhu, I have a hard time sitting and focusing on japa. I love japa walks, but sometimes do this to get away with less attentive japa. Yeah, these and Murali Gopal, I don't know what good rounds mean. They're all bad. Yeah, we're just about 8 o'clock. But these things have also, they also fall into that similar category of, okay, I know what I'm doing isn't the best. And this is what I do to pretend that it's not so bad. In order to get further along the path, we have to admit, yeah, I'm kind of pulling one over on myself. And remember, you're not pulling it over on anybody else. Or you may be, but it's not important. The important thing is I'm pulling it over on myself. And do I want to grow in bhakti or don't I want to grow in bhakti? So it's time that we, as best as possible, as much as possible, admit these shortcomings to ourselves and try to deal with them to the best of our abilities and get help from others, pray, get help from God, get help from Krishna, and get help from other devotees whom we trust to help us to get through. It's 8 o'clock. I thank you all again very, very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.